So hey guys, welcome to my new movie review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the film Selfless. It is the new Tarsem Singh film. He's worked on such films like The Cell, Mirror Mirror, things like that. He's only worked on a few films. He worked on a film called The Fall, which involved Spike Jonze and David Fincher as producers. So he's been a part of a few stuff. But this is his latest film, which is called Selfless. I guess I read online somewhere. I guess this film's been pushed back a couple times, but luckily it got a release during the summer. So I guess lucky for Tarsem Singh, he got a good time of the year to release a movie. The downside is if it's not a good movie, it's really going to fall flat since it's has a lot of competition to go up against. But Selfless is a film about a land developer billionaire. He's very rich. He's very well known for all this architecture and buildings and land planning that he's been doing over the good, strong course of his life. I believe this character is in his like mid to late 60s, so he's been around for a while. A lot of people know him. A lot of people respect his work. So basically, he's basically dying. He's at the point in his life now where he either has to accept that he's not going to live too long, too much longer at this point, or he has this other option to him that's available that's called shedding. And shedding is a fictional experiment within the movie where it allows somebody's conscious to transfer to another body, but the body they once had will now be dead. But he has this opportunity to live on in another person's body, which has been promised to him is a genetically engineered body made in a lab. So Ben Kingsley's character, who's this billionaire, hears about this. He really strongly considers this, and as he's closer and closer to death, he does eventually go through with this experiment. But as he is in this new body, with the character who's played by Ryan Reynolds, he finds out, that this is obviously a non-spoiler review, but this guy has a whole history behind him. Um, there's reasons why he's in this lab and why his body was open for this experiment. Why Ben Kingsley was able to get into his body over somebody else's, and so there's this whole thing you'll find out throughout the course of the film as to why this guy got there, why his body was available for owning, I guess you could say, why somebody's conscious could be transferred into this guy, and that there's also some dark secrets behind the creator of shedding that we also find out throughout the course of the film as to how he can make it possible and how he himself knows that shedding works, but also was aware of the downside, which Ben Kingsley turned Ryan Reynolds also finds out throughout the course of the movie. So overall, guys, I thought Selfless was a very unique concept for a film. I think that's what ultimately made me want to go see this movie. It's just the fact that the concept is very unique. It definitely has, something interesting to say about immortality and how us as people always want to live on, how we never really want to die, how we really want to live life to the fullest. And for many of us, we have a passion or a skill set that is very valuable. We want it to live on forever. And, this shedding experiment that the Ben Kingsley character took advantage of is something that also I think a lot of other people would take advantage of if something like this was available. And so basically, it had a lot to say about immortality, which ultimately made me want to go see the movie. But selflessly, guys, for my positives and negatives of the movie, I thought this was a very unique concept. Like I said, I like the idea of somebody transferring their conscious into another body and how they're able to live on and be able to do things that they were able to do when they were younger that they weren't able to do for many years. Now they have that option available to them to do that things that they were able to do when they were younger. The character that Ben Kingsley plays, that's later played by Ryan Reynolds, I liked the consistency of the character. I liked how I could definitely tell that the Ben Kingsley character and the Ryan Reynolds character are one and the same. It's definitely the same soul that's being transferred from one body to another. It's being kept consistent. And I like how we really get the impression that Ryan Reynolds is this other guy that's now living within his body. This film has great cinematography. Tarsem Singh, one thing that I think ultimately keeps allowing him to get more work like this is he's very good at visuals. He's very good at shooting scenes, framing scenes, having just really good cinematography to work with for his stories. This film is no exception. Selfless has some great cinematography. There's also some great set designs in this movie. Donald Trump's apartment actually is one of the sets in the movie, so you can definitely tell this they were trying to make this character look rich, specifically when Ben Kingsley's playing him, and they do a very good job at that. We really get the impression that this guy has a ton of money. That I think they even said at one point in the movie that this shedding process, if it were to be available in real life, it would cost roughly $250 million or some crazy amount of money like that. Um, so we definitely got the impression that this guy has a ton of money, that he's had a huge lifespan of work that he's really proud of. And we obviously had some great set designs representing how rich this guy was, as well as other places this character went to throughout the movie that also have really good set designs. Matthew Good is in the film, and he plays basically the creator of Shedding, and he's a very interesting character. You definitely get to see kind of the dark side of Shedding and how this character is connected with all of it. And I just like how Matthew Good took on this character. It felt very believable. You can definitely side with him at times of what he's doing, but you can also kind of see why people don't like him and why people are against this whole shedding thing and how. So basically, how they handled this character, I thought was very good for the most part. The film also works well as a thriller. This film really is kind of an edge of your seat experience. So I think Tarsem Singh did a wonderful job with making sure that this is a thriller film. And when we get into my negatives here, you'll see kind of the downside of that. But as a thriller, this film works pretty well as that. The film also has a very fitting end to it, a very fitting send off, something that the film of this subject matter I think should have. And overall, I think Selfless is a good rental experience. So for those who are looking for a good Redbox rental down the line, in the future, I think Selfless is definitely going to be go down as a successful film rental. Though not quite a film that I don't think a lot of people are going to want to own. But for my negatives of Selfless, there actually are some pretty bad action scenes here, and that goes back to my earlier point with Selfless works well as a thriller. It really does work well as a thriller. I think if it kept consistent with that genre, I think it would have been a really good movie. Unfortunately, it tries to be an action movie at times, and the action scenes are actually pretty bad for the most part. So if you're looking for a good action film out of Selfless, unfortunately, it's really not that movie. I was really unimpressed with the action scenes here. They're really not that good. Whether that's Tarsem Singh's fault or the writer's fault of the movie, the action scenes really weren't that good. Oh, the overall villain of the movie, I thought the closure of this character was pretty bad. Um, the way that this character got sent off and how there was closure to the character of him by the end of the movie was just overall pretty bad. In fact, I was kind of laughing to myself to the closure of this character. Just really was not very good. There's also several conveniences throughout the film, specifically with the plot, and specifically when Ryan Reynolds has to get out of some really tough situations. Really convenient for a lot of the content for those situations in the movie, and unfortunately, it does kind of wear the experience down just because of just how convenient some things are. There's also some forced romance here. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but for those who have seen the trailers and really examined it, you'll probably guess what it is. But for those who kind of put the pieces together and see this movie, you'll know what I mean. It's a very forced romance for when that happens. The film also becomes really conventional after a while. It just becomes your typical action hero out to get the bad guy kind of movie. And I really think Selfless has such an interesting concept that it really didn't have to go that direction. It really was interesting when it was about Ben Kingsley transferring his conscience to this other guy. And, there's this whole thing about, immortality and why people want it. And, it works really well as a thriller. And I really don't understand how it has to become this conventional action movie just for the sake of them not really knowing how to conclude everything as a really interesting thriller. So that's kind of the downside of Selfless, and that's why I think overall this film works better as a rental. I really don't see anything about this movie that makes it absolutely essential to see it on the big screen in theaters. So for those who really are interested in seeing Selfless, please just rent the movie. I really don't think it's worth the $8 ticket, but it is worth renting for like a $1 rental at Redbox when it eventually goes to that. So overall, I am going to give Selfless a 7.5 out of 10. It works very well as a rental. It works very well as a thriller. Unfortunately, when it tries to be an action movie, things fall flat really quickly, and I really wish it just could have been a consistent thriller throughout the runtime. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. This movie works great as a rental, but it's not going to be quite a film that I think most people are going to buy. And to be honest, I really can't see this film being remembered about 5 or 10 years from now. So that's also the other downside of Selfless. So if you want to see this film, please just rent it. I think it's best to view it that way for those who want to see it.